The flames were over 200 feet high. I cautiously approached the back of the aircraft to fight the fire. Boom! A huge explosion knocked me back, stumbling. I got up and started to continue to fight the fire. Suddenly, boom! Another powerful explosion slammed me back against the fire truck. There's a pain in my head, in my chest. I taste blood. I can't breathe, and I pass out before hitting the ground. I'm laying there on the ground. I feel this lifting sensation. I look and I see my buddies, Jim, Dan, carrying off an unconscious firefighter. I yell to them, "Help! Jim, Dan! I'm over here! Why can't they hear me?" And then I realize it is me they are carrying. Help! Help! Help me! My buddies are carrying me to safety, and then boom! Whoosh! Sound of another explosion comes and knocks us down, knocking them on top of my body. Now I'm in darkness, but I'm still fully conscious. All of a sudden a tunnel appears, like an aurora borealis. Off in the distance of this tunnel, a beautiful light started to appear and emerge. I could feel a sense of unconditional love and peace. I went into the light. This is a true story of an event that happened in 1970 at Ellsworth Air Force Base. The airman, the patient, who had a near-death experience, went to be treated for the near-death experience, and the doctor dismissed his case and sent him for a psychological evaluation. Fortunately for us, it's not the 1970s anymore, and researchers like Dr. Bruce Grayson here embraced the research of near-death experience. He also recorded that story in his book After. He and other researchers conclude that the study of near-death experiences and introducing that into the suicidal treatment can decrease the thoughts of suicide. In the conclusion of the previous video on near-death experience and suicide prevention, I asked you the question point blank: if there's more you could do to reduce this number, would you do it? This isn't a song where you can just say, "Oh, I would do anything, but I won't do that." Fortunately for us again, Dr. Bruce Grayson will do that. He says, studies have shown that introducing information about near-death experiences into the treatment of suicidal clients who did not respond to traditional therapy can lead to a dramatic decrease or elimination of suicidal thoughts. Pretty powerful.
Self-destruction is what we're looking at here. And people who've had near-death experiences as a result of a suicide attempt come back and they tell me they'd never do it again. But not because they felt that they were going to end up in some terrible hell, but because it's kind of like walking out of the movie before the end.
Dr. Raymond Moody, that I introduced to you in the first video, he is the author of Life After Life, and he also wrote The Light Beyond. He says in his book, "The loss of hope is the primary reason for suicide. To them, life is a burden, and there exists in them a void of spiritual belief."
I lived for about a decade with intense depression and anxiety, self-loathing. I hit rock bottom. I went to a place where I actually didn't want to live anymore. I was self-medicating. I had, over a long period of time, seen psychiatrists, other doctors. I was trying to understand my condition and trying to treat it with the help of pure evidence-based science.
Dr. Alexander identifies the, quote, major culprit for the steady growth in suicide has been due to the spiritual vacuum that has crept into the secular culture. And he is correct in saying that mainstream Western society takes its lead from conventional science, which denies the existence of the soul and spirit. He says, quote, "Our society simply doesn't support the value and rich internal spiritual connection." So I'll ask the question again. If the spiritual pillar, which is part of our total comprehensive health, is that important that introducing aspects of spirituality into the suicidal treatment can help, would you do it?
I saw one therapist who said perhaps it's something else that you have, and she described it as spiritual bankruptcy.
Dr. Moody concludes that what the near-death experience or the recalled experience of death does is it helps to fill that spiritual void, to where a new outlook on life that is a rich and fulfilling afterlife awaits. He says that this knowledge has a way of relieving their pain. It makes them feel that life is worth living.
I feel connected to something higher and greater than myself. My zest for life is back. That
Raymond says in his original book, Life After Life, that a patient realized that their near-death experience or recalled experience of death, that killing yourself was completely forbidden, quote. It would be deliberate interference with your life's purpose. Dr. Raymond Moody talks about entering the light and receiving a life review. Granted, a person doesn't turn away from the light into outer darkness.
They say that was a bad move. They get back, they say, I wouldn't do it again, because they had the sense that if it had gone through to completion, they would be kind of placed on a sidetrack. Not a punishment, but a learning experience, right? Mm-hmm. And that they would have to see the consequence of their action on all their loved ones.
Yeah.
See, like the feelings that they had brought about, which is would be part of the life review anyway, right? You've got to, whatever you do to somebody else that's unkind, you're going to see from their perspective in this life review.
If you study NDEs or RDs, you will find that a life review is a common topic. We know a lot about the life review from studying near-death experiences. However, we do not know much about the final review. If this life review is indeed correct, which thousands if not millions of testimonies say that it is, your depression, your problems, your anxiety will continue. This meat suit, this avatar that you wear will hit the floor. Your light, your energy, your spirit, your soul, your aura, your consciousness will continue. And you will have a new problem, a much bigger, grandiose problem to deal with.
But this is where we get the work done, is in this material realm. It's really what we do here and how we live our lives. In fact, you don't leave your problems behind with suicide. This is the big message to all of us, that a richer sense of spiritual connection can lead us towards wholeness and healing. To me, as a physician, as a neurosurgeon, that's one of the deepest and most profound messages.
Dr. Eben Alexander, MD, he's a neurosurgeon who wrote the book Living in a Mindful Universe. He also had a near-death experience. He says in his book, there is no escape from the continuum of conscious awareness. It is wise to embrace this glorious gift of physical life and to rise to the challenges it presents to afford the possibilities of true learning, growth, and transcendence. Living in a Mindful Universe, Dr. Eben Alexander. Dr. Sam Parnia agrees, and he writes in Lucid Dying, he is a medical doctor. He says they recognize that suicide is not an option, as you cannot really die. If anything, it compounds the problems you may have been trying to escape from, and it creates a far greater pain and suffering. Lucid Dying, Dr. Sam Parnia. Dr. Kenneth Ring, PhD, he also says in his book, Lessons from the Light, a general domain in which near-death experience material has proved useful and has even quite literally saved lives, has to do with suicide prevention. Fortunately, a number of suicidal persons have been apparently led to abandon their suicidal intent through either deliberate or inadvertent exposure to information about near-death experiences. He writes about a patient in his book who was deeply suicidal. She was a drug addict, she was alcoholic, abused as a child, considered obese, she had suicidal gestures, and took action because she wanted to die. She entered into the light. And she says, while in the light, she heard in her mind words, you will never commit suicide again, and be well. It was the words, be well, that probably healed her. She experienced the love emanating from this light. Her recovery was not immediately, but she got off of drugs. She gave up alcohol. She even went to start counseling other suicidal people. She realized that I am not my body. So what? I get a little bit of fat. You know what? Big deal. It isn't who I am. She ended up getting married, became a counselor in school, and she was healed by the light. John McDonough also picked up on what Dr. Raymond Moody was putting down way back in the 1970s. And he writes in Introducing Near-Death Research into Findings in Psychotherapy, says, traditionally it has been regarded as inappropriate for therapists to introduce issues of spirituality into psychotherapy. His specialty is PTSD and veterans and militaries. He says, I departed from this convention and discussed the rationale and results of doing so with adult and adolescent suicidal patients in 1979. He says that Moody's findings were interesting because after experiencing the NDEs, no suicidal patients in his acquaintance ever attempted suicide again. They learned that suicide was not an option. What Dr. John McDonough did was he treated a patient and he read selective passages from Moody's book to her. It says that she cried profusely when she realized that the dilemma that plagued her in this life would continue into the next plane of existence because suicide was not an option. The treatment, however, was transformative because she began to dig more deeply into herself to solve the problem. She said it was the desperate option of suicide no longer existed, and she would have to focus on the energy of the remaining options for treatment. Now that we've gone through that, let's look at what we can do. We've got the total comprehensive fitness, mental, physical, social, and spiritual. First off, do not deny the spiritual. We have the secular community that mainly wants to use the triad approach of mental, physical, and social. Do not deny the spiritual component. Stay curious, stay interested in the spiritual component. Treat people, use it as a tool. The 2021 CDC data shows that 12.3 million have seriously thought about suicide. If that is you, seek help now. Call the number 988 or other resources. Also, if you are impulsive to suicide, please deny that impulse. Get yourself lots of time and distance from anything that might do you harm. Any pills, any firearms you've got, get them out. Give yourself lots of time and distance from anything harmful. 3.5 million have made a plan for suicide according to the CDC. What we've shown in this study is that plan is not going to work out the way you intended to. Those problems are going to go with you and they are going to compound. We also have 1.7 million have attempted suicide from our near-death experience researchers. Those experiencers come back and they say that suicide is not an option. What we've learned in this study is this plan right here. This plan is junk. This plan is going to get you nowhere. You need a new life plan. Talk to your counselor now. Talk to them about a total comprehensive plan. Mental health component to that plan. Physical, social, spiritual health component to that plan. A new life plan. This is old and busted. This isn't what you need. You need a new life plan. Talk to your counselor now about a new life plan. Get yourself a new life plan now. A lot of times we can be our own harshest critics. We look in the mirror, we tell ourselves lies, insults. We let society dictate what our category is, tell us what our identity is and what group we belong to. The truth is, your material self might not have a clue what your vast potential and purpose is, but I can tell you, you have value, you have purpose, you have meaning. I can also tell you that in a life review, something about some girl, some boy, some dance, some gossip, something that looks unsurmountable now is going to look like a molehill. I'll also tell you that your sister now needs a wonderful aunt in the future. Your brother, he needs someone to help him through his first breakup. And something personal to me, the reason I gave up alcohol and my indirect suicide is because my daughters need someone to walk them down the aisle. I don't need to see another man do that in a life review. At the end of the day, life feels much like a roller coaster. But I can tell you, don't get off in the middle. It's not going to end well. Ride it to the end, buy the photo. There are going to be many twists, turns, hills, valleys. Sometimes you ride into darkness. But I can tell you, keep going. The light is coming. You got this.